Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the big news. The topic for today's discussion, Sant Tukaram and Workery sect. Before we understand what this topic is all about, we have an announcement. BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS is happy to launch a new initiative called as Target Mains 2022. This will be live from June 13th every day from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. and all that you have to do is watch this initiative on our BYJU'S Exam Prep application. So please do download the application and watch some of the distinguished lectures given by our expert faculty members. All the mains related topics will be discussed as part of this initiative. So what are you waiting for? Download the application and watch this initiative live on the BYJU'S Exam Prep application. Now let's get started and try and understand what is this topic all about. We have all heard of the Bhakti Moment. What does the term Bhakti means? The term symbolizes devotion or a passionate love for the divine. The Bhakti Moment stresses the mystical union of the individual with God. What do we understand by Bhakti Moment? As the very name denotes, Bhakti here stands for the devotion. It is a religious concept. Basically, a person who has a devotional concept towards God, he surrenders himself to the God, to the personally conceived supreme God for attaining moksha or the salvation. So when we speak about Bhakti movement, this happens to be a revival movement during the medieval India period where it wanted to bring massive reforms when it comes to all strata of the society. Some scholars believe that the rise of the Bhakti movement was a reaction against feudal oppression. What do we mean by feudalism? When we consider feudalism, this as a concept originated in Europe. So when we speak about European feudalism, we speak about nobility, clergy, commoners, so on and so forth. But if we have to bring it to the Indian feudalism, what we have is a social structure in the form of the so-called caste system. So what do we have? We had the prevalent caste system in place. This caste system perpetuated inequality and it was divided in the form of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and what we had was inequality. So as a fight against the Indian feudalism which was divided on a caste basis, what we have is the Bhakti movement. So the Bhakti movement came across as one of the revival movements where it wanted to embrace equality in the society. Another group of scholars believe that the socio-economic changes in the early medieval period led to the emergence of this movement. During the 13th and the 14th century, the demand for goods increased, which also led to the migration of artisans into the cities. The Bhakti movement gained support from these classes of the society as they were not satisfied with the low status given to them, and hence they turned towards the Bhakti since it focused on equality. So basically, we know for the fact that if we consider the Indian feudal characteristics, it was on the basis of the caste system, and to throw away or to bring an egalitarian society, what we had was a reformist movement called as the Bhakti movement. So basically, if a person surrenders himself to a personally conceived supreme God for attaining salvation, that is what is called as Bhakti movement. The Bhakti movement empowered all the lowest rungs of the Indian society and also provided for the impetus of the vernacular literature. So if you consider the period back then, you had certain castes who were writing in the Sanskrit literature, but then you also had these type of people who started writing in the vernacular language as well, and these people who were part of the revival Bhakti movement also traveled a lot to propagate their ideas, and one of such persons who belonged to this revival movement during the Bhakti movement happened to be Tukaramji. So Tukaramji was a 17th century Marathi poet and a Hindu sant. He was a sant of the Workery Sampradaya that venerates the god Vidobha in Maharashtra. Tukaramji is best known for his devotional poetry called Abhanga and the community oriented worship with spiritual songs known as Kirtans. His guru was Bhakti movement saint Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was a contemporary of Maratha ruler Shivaji Maharaj and saints like Eknath and Ramdas. So remember, these are the very important factual data that you have to remember from the preliminary examination point of view. As we discussed, one of the unique attributes of the Bhakti movement were these people who are contributing to the Bhakti movement started writing in the local vernacular language. Tukaramji also chose to write on the religious matters, and that too in Marathi, which happens to be the language of the people. When we speak about Tukaramji, there are two important points that we have to cater to. One is the workery sect, the other happens to be Abhanga. What is this workery sect? When we speak about workery sect, it happens to be a sampradaya within the Bhakti spiritual tradition of Hinduism. What is this sampradaya? Sampradaya basically means tradition. It is certain customs that is carried forward as a legacy, as a form of heritage from one generation to another. So this happens to be a religious movement which took place in the state of Maharashtra, where these workeries started worshipping Vittala, the presiding deity of Pandharpur, where it is regarded as a form of Krishna. The saints and the gurus of the Bhakti movement associated with the workeries include Dhyaneshwar, Namdev, Chokamela, Eknath as well as Tukaram. So remember, workery happens to be a religious movement, a Bhakti spiritual tradition of the Hinduism which took place in the state of Maharashtra, where these workeries worship Vittala, the presiding deity of Pandharpur, who is regarded as a form of Krishna. What are Abhangas? Abhangas is a form of devotional poetry sung in praise of the Hindu god Vittal. Abhangas are sung during pilgrimage to the temples of Pandharpur by the devotees, and during this particular period, Tukaramji also wrote about various types of superstitions as well. He also said that the society was caught in the web of religious superstitions and social backwardness, and he also wanted to bring massive reforms in the society as well. So what are the teachings of Tukaramji? Sant Tukaram wanted to use his Bhakti movement to improve the religious backwardness in the society. He tried to spread the message of unity through the means of his Abhanga, which are nothing but the hymns, songs in devotion of the god. Tukaramji also accepted disciples and devotees without discriminating the gender. When you look into the society back then, what you had is a clear bias. There was a patriarchal society. There were men and women who were segregated, and women were not allowed to expose themselves to other worldly affairs as well. So what does Tukaramji say? He says that men and women are equal and we have to respect every gender. His message about casteless society and his denial of rituals had led to a social movement as well. Sant Tukaramji is also credited with starting the Wari pilgrimage, and Sant Tukaramji opposed various rituals that were prevalent during that particular time. In fact, we also have Mahatma Gandhi ji, who was under arrest in Yerawada Central Jail during the British colonial period, and during this period he started reading and also translated Tukaram's poetry so that people are aware about the social message. Why are we discussing this now? That is because we have the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is going to inaugurate Sant Tukaram Shila Mandir, where in the temple town of Dehu in the Pune district. What is this Shila? This happens to be a rock that is currently on the Dehu Sansthan temple premises, and that for centuries has been starting point of Wari, the annual pilgrimage to Pandharpur. So when we speak about the Shila Mandir, the Bhakti Saint Sant Tukaram had sat on this piece of rock for about 13 continuous days. When challenged about the authenticity of the Abhangas he had written. So remember, the Shila Mandir is present in Pune, and the very rock where Sant Tukaramji sat for 13 days is pious and a place of pilgrimage for the workery sect. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.